Hey guys, welcome to Critical Flick. Today I'm reviewing Goodnight Mommy, now streaming on Amazon Prime Video. Goodnight Mommy is the remake of a 2014 Austrian thriller, and I have to say, it's one of those movies that falls in that category of American films that try to remake these really well-made, well-crafted foreign horror thriller movies, and it just falls flat and misses on some of the messaging. So I'll say right away, this movie, in my opinion, isn't nearly as good as the original film. I don't love the original movie. I do think it's really well made, and I did enjoy it when I saw it. But this one is just kind of like this one's kind of just a shell of that movie. So in this movie, we have the twins Elias and Lucas, and their mother comes back from having a surgery. She's bandaged up. She's going through trying to heal from having the surgery, and they start to think that it's not really their mother. Things are changing. They just don't really not convinced that it's her. They need to try to find a way to get away from her. They think she's an imposter. It's kind of building this tension and just between everyone involved, and then it leads to some big reveals at the end of the movie. All in all, the movie does follow a lot of the same plot points. It's very similar in its structure and its story. You have Naomi Watts in this film who's playing the mother. Nicholas and Cameron Cravetti play the two twins, Lucas and Elias. And I do think that Naomi Watts does a really good job in this one. I think that's kind of the standout from this movie. It's the one real positive I can take away from it. I think the twins do a good job. I've seen them in other movies and other shows where they've been a little bit better, in my opinion. They're not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I really do enjoy, their work in The Boys and Big Little Lies. So this isn't like a bad role for them, and I'm glad that they were given the option and given the opportunity to do this, because I think they did do a pretty solid job, but they're just not given a lot to work with. And I think when you compare it to the original movie is where it really falls flat, because that original film really hones in on the messages of it, and it's very visceral and it's very intense, and you get to take away a lot from it. And it doesn't have to do it in like a flashy and like conventional horror movie way. And this one, it really tries to be just scary. It tries to be like a very consumable and a wide audience like film where people go into it and they can, like, oh, this is scary, this is creepy, what's happening. I feel like the original movie doesn't try to do that. It tries to be a story about loss and a story about struggling with depression and coping with tragedy. And this movie does that to a degree, but I think it misses the point on why the original is so well received and why people love that original film. And like I said, this movie isn't as intense and as grotesque in a way as that first movie. There's a lot of things that happen that are really messed up in that original film. And this one, it dials it back a little bit, because obviously it's trying to reach a wider audience. It is an Amazon movie. It's out there for almost anyone to look into and see. It's not kind of like a more cult classic film. So I understand why they did it, but it really just kind of cuts the movie down at its knees. It can't do the things that the original film did so well, and I think some of the messaging is really just lost because of that. Now, I won't dive too much into the spoilers of the movie, because that is why the movie is so good, in my opinion. That's why the original movie is so good, because that twist is such a gut punch. You don't see it coming, and it really kind of makes the whole movie come together in a way at the end of the film. This one, not so much. I feel like it's a little rushed. I feel like the overall reveal at the end doesn't have the gut punch and the twist that the original movie had. And I do think the ending itself, it just isn't, it's not executed nearly as well as the original film, because in the original film, you get to see kind of the reunion of everything. Everything comes together, and you kind of have this idea of, okay, we have this kind of bow put on it. This one, it doesn't feel that way. It just kind of abruptly ends. We get a similar ending, but I just don't think, like I said, it's executed as well as the first one. This movie does interject some more conventional horror elements into it, so some more imagery that maybe the modern American audiences would be interested in. I personally think, like I said, it takes away from the original film, because the movie's not even that old. It's made in 2014. It's not that old of a movie to really need a remake necessarily. But I mean, we're seeing this more and more when you have the success of a foreign film. A lot of studios just feel, we can try to replicate that. They like the first one. Let's just replicate it in English for an American audience, and people will just go watch it. They can really bank on that name recognition and capitalize on it. And too often, it falls flat. I think this movie is an example of that, like I said. So I don't have a lot positive to say. I think the performances are solid. It's the same story in a lot of ways, so it does, it works on having that skeleton of that original movie, but I just think it misses on the messaging. The imagery is it's not as powerful. And just overall, it's fine, but when you compare it to the first film, it's really a miss. So if I were to rate Goodnight Mommy, I would give it a 3 out of 10. Like I said, maybe if it came out on its own and I hadn't seen the original movie and I didn't know how well executed it was and how the messaging worked in that film, maybe I'd like a little bit more. But alas, if you want to check it out, just check out the original movie. And if you've seen the original movie, maybe this is a skip. Maybe you want to see it just to compare the two. Maybe you'll like it a lot more than me. Maybe general audiences who haven't seen the first one will watch this one and think it's really interesting because it is an interesting premise. I can't say that it's not. That's why the first one's so well received. So leave those comments down below. Let me know what you think about it. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.